All right. So, how do we want to introduce In Stride, guys?
That's a
There.
great question here with this podcast. Thanks for coming together, guys, for episode one of the In Stride podcast. I'm Justin McQuarrie, and I'm here with Alex Bowden and Nathan Bartels, the three founding members of In Stride T1D, an organization we have put together and are launching right now with this podcast to elevate, innovate, and advocate for anything and everything in the type 1 diabetes space. The three of us have over 100 years of combined type 1 diabetes experience. And through that, we've competed in sport at the highest levels, managed careers on and off the bike, managed families, built families, and are doing quite a few things while also living with type 1 diabetes. And there's a lot of pieces of technology and different management strategies that we have all learned to live with and learn to adapt to our lifestyles so that we can help keep type 1 diabetes in stride with our day-to-day life. With In Stride, we have three pillars that we're kind of building this company on: advocate, elevate, and innovate. And Alex is here to kind of dive a little bit more in depth about what that just might entail.
Hey, Justin. Thanks for putting it over. Yeah. So, like you said, all decided to get this company going just out of kind of a need that we found in the diabetes space after all these years, and kind of this three-pillar mission that we'd like to accomplish. Number one being advocate, championing a new narrative for type 1 diabetes, right? Like we've all kind of seen the perceptions of how it's seen as like a limitation, but we want to shift that into a more empowerment narrative. And we also want to elevate, right? We've experienced a lot of unique insights from living with type 1 diabetes and competing at some of the highest levels and all those accomplishments. And we've learned over the years, right? Like there is a true power to being able to use the data that diabetes gives us and actually kind of work that to our advantage in a lot of different ways. And we want to start sharing that with the rest of the T1D community. And kind of the final pillar, right, is innovation. Um, we've all experienced a huge range of diabetes products as we've grown up with the condition. Maybe condition is the right or wrong word, depending on how you want to look at it, right? But a lot of different care and methods and things like that. But we've often found that there's still some need. There's still some ways that they could be better. They could be improved. And we want to help bring that to kind of help empower others with T1D. And Nathan, who I've known for, man, coming up on like 20 years at this point, I think. You and I a long time ago got to share in a pretty special T1D community, and talking to you about it, right? Like figuring out how to bring that back would be awesome. I mean, you, this is definitely something you were a big part of a long time ago. If you want to kind of throw in, your thoughts on what we need there.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I mean, one of the benefits in my life that diabetes has given me is this connection with community, and more specifically, this endurance sports community of high achievers that all share one thing in common, and that's the pursuit of excellence while managing their type 1 diabetes. And when I talk about the community, I'm talking about the things I learned by surrounding myself with other people who were doing things different than me. The one of the things that I've realized is that there's not like one way to do it, and everybody's got their own ways of delivering insulin, their own way of managing their diabetes, their own way of like where they're going to put their numbers on, it's the start of race day. But it's this shared community and this collaboration of being able to connect with other people that are in the same pursuit as you are, and being able to learn from their trials and errors and their life and their lessons that they've learned over the years. And so with In Stride, one of the things that I'm really passionate about is taking the thing that's been such a blessing in my life, which is this community, and figuring out how to create product around that to where we can reach more people who want to excel in life while managing this type 1 diabetes.
Yeah, I think that's a great point there, Nathan. Yeah, like you were saying, the three of us have lived with diabetes for a long time, and we've all learned to manage it while also managing highly competitive and successful careers, both in sport and outside of sport. And there's lots of pieces of technology that have helped us get to the point where we are in our careers that are not diabetes focused, but we are obviously also managing this condition, disease, whatever you want to framework call it. These technologies have helped us significantly, and there's always room for improvement, always room for new tech. And kind of the idea behind InStride was to put significant thought and experience and not necessarily pressure, but use our insights from the lives we've lived to create a better tomorrow for all of us living with type 1 diabetes and the people that help us out as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the catalysts to starting this company is the constant feedback that Alex, Justin, and myself constantly get while we're, at the start of a bike race. In my case, if I'm, at the beach changing into a wetsuit, you're always like, you've got your insulin pumps, you've got your constant glucose monitors hanging off your arms. And so it's the perfect introduction to other people in the area that also might be managing type 1 diabetes. And you always have somebody run up to you and they're like, "Oh, hey, you're going out, you're doing the thing. And like, how do you manage this and that with the other while you have type 1 diabetes?" And so it's just like, it's like the best part of my day when those conversations come up, because it's so amazing to me that, you know, people are hungry to be able to get after it, but there seems to still be um, this gap in, I don't know if it's knowledge, I don't know if it's a mindset, but there's like a lack of people feeling confident in the pursuit of their thing. And so, part of what we want to do with InStride is create a platform to really empower people to get after, life and go after the things that they want to pursue.
Yeah, and I think you touched on like a really important part, right? Like, cool, you change it into a wetsuit, somebody sees your Dexcom, they run up to you and are like, "Yo, you have diabetes. This is like, so do I. And how do you do this?" Right? And that's really cool. But I think one of the things I am really excited about is there's only so many opportunities in our day-to-day lives to do that, right? Like, you're only going to run into somebody on the street doing a sport or doing something that you can recognize has diabetes, and you're going to have an opportunity to talk with without potentially interrupting their day or something like that. Like, I think from my experience, most of the people in this community are more than happy to share their experience, but there's also being able to kind of find a way to make that searchable and findable, and kind of changing kind of the narratives that we generally have. That means if I have a question, right, I can go find the answer without like hoping I run into somebody on at a group ride or something, right? That's kind of done a similar thing, and that's definitely something I'm pretty excited about, at least on the technical side of things.
Well, I mean, to feed off of that thought, Alex, I mean, that kind of brings us to where we're at today and why we want to launch this podcast right now. I mean, Alex, you and Justin are both preparing to go race in the Unbound 200, which is a 200-mile gravel race in Emporia that starts in Emporia, Kansas, and is, one of the elite level, gravel cycling events in the country. And as a type 1 diabetic, I mean, it's like all the questions pop up, right? Is like, what are you doing for nutrition? What are you doing for prep? What are you doing for recovery? What kind of insulin protocols are you on? What are you guys doing? And it's not that I'm going to copy it, but I am curious to learn from your experience. And so as we move into, this coming week, we're gonna get into some of the details of how you guys are managing this. And I think that's where, in part, where some of this the power of InStride comes in, is this shared collective of what people are doing. And Alex, when we've been teammates for 20 years on the elite cycling side of it. And I mean, we both talk about how that was the biggest value add for us, is feeding off of each other's experience and trials and errors, and how do you move forward. And so, as we move into the next podcast, it's going to be really exciting to unpack what you guys are doing as you head into Unbound 200.
Yeah, and with one important caveat here, Justin is in the elite group, and I'm in the has-been age group. So
Okay, so I will say, like, that doesn't matter, man. Like, if you're a dad, you're still getting after it. I mean, you guys have to deal with the same struggles, the same thing. You guys have to deal with the same diabetes management hurdles, right? Insulin
hey,
delivery,
fair enough.
food,
Yeah.
all the rest of it. Justin's probably just going to go quite a bit faster than you.
Fingers crossed that
Not
happens.
probably, almost definitely.
That's the only difference, right?
Yeah, either
Yeah,
way, we've
for
got 200 miles of gravel and diabetes alongside both, for all 200 for both of us.
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
and I think a good segue into there is just for anybody obviously that probably has no idea who we are, right? Like an important thing to point out is Justin is probably the only, or at least one of the only current professional privateer gravel cyclists living with type 1.
My,
So I mean,
yeah,
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 take it away.
it's a pretty narrow field if we're narrowing it down to people in the gravel space that are also living and racing with type 1 diabetes. And like you guys were saying, I'm also equally excited about being able to bring my experience from managing this career, both athletically, business wise, day to day life of the sport, but I'm also managing this condition that a lot of other people are as well, just like both of you. And there's, like Nathan was saying, you feed off the energy of fellow diabetics, fellow people living with type 1 diabetes that are also going through their own lives and pursuits of careers, either athletically, non-athletically, and that only makes your life with diabetes, it can make it a lot better. And you can learn all these new tips and tricks, and also have the community around you to know that you're definitely not alone in going through these
Yeah.
struggles. And it's cool to be able to focus solely on that, like on the diabetes, on the community, on the technologies that are helping us get to where we're at, and either go as fast as you want on a bike, pursue whatever career path you want to the fullest, and yeah, keep doing it with diabetes in stride the whole way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Nathan, do you want to give a quick background on who you are in the diabetes world too?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I've been an elite athlete, and a type 1 diabetic for, oh geez, it's been a long time. Like 20 years or so. I got to know Alex, when we used to race bikes together, and we did a ultra endurance, race together called Race Across America, where we actually, won that race and set a record for the fastest time. And, the team was comprised of a group of type 1 diabetics. And so, that was a great, kind of catalyst into, this world of what Alex and I have found ourselves doing, just on the advocacy side, just the passion for, the pursuit of excellence with this disease, and actually figuring out ways to harness, the difficulty and use it for fuel to get us, to the finish line. It was funny. I remember after that race, as an example, people would ask and they'd say, "Oh, how did you do that?" And it was like, we had an advantage. Like, at the start of the race, I knew that we were going to win that race. And people were like, "You knew you were going to win? Like, I didn't even know you could finish." And it was like, no, you don't understand. Like, it was so much harder for us to even get to the starting line of that race, that we had a massive advantage over all the other competition. And we proved that to be absolutely correct. And so that's kind of set myself into, where we're at today, and really excited with the technology to be able to develop a podcast, and, to develop products around connecting other people to share these lessons, and to, just to build upon this energy.
Love it.
yes, I think you hit the nail on the head there, right? Like,
Yeah.
for me, especially, doing a race across America so long ago, kind of growing up with this mindset, right, has definitely helped shape the last, decade plus of my life, right? Like, after that, right, I moved up in the professional ranks for a couple of years, and burnt out really hard from cycling, but there's actually, you know, looking back, kind of a cool thing for me personally, just because it meant that I got to like figure out how to have like a big kid job for a while. You know, like have a family now and deal with the challenges of like diabetes while raising a kid, which amazingly has really not ever been much of an issue aside from like, oh, okay, I realize sometimes when my blood sugars are high, I'm a little bit less patient with a toddler, which, you know, is always a challenge. But, you know, it is kind of cool how like just this mentality that has grown for so many years is kind of a key component to life. And I think that we've always had this kind of shared view of diabetes where it's like, okay, yeah, it's cool. It's this thing we have and we have to deal with it, but everybody has to deal with something. And if we can turn it and, you know, find the ways that we can, you know, tweak it to our advantage, things just work. And, you know, that kind of mentality just teaches us like how to handle other stressful situations that we run into. And, you know,
Well,
obviously
a little teaser too, Alex, to spin off of that is I've been just like so inspired by the research that's out there when it comes to the difference between a stress is debilitating versus a stress is enhancing mindset. And so like the mindset component is something we'll definitely dig into in future episodes, because there's so much power there when you get that right, how much easier this whole thing becomes.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that to me, it's been pretty clear. That's one thing we all share. It's not what do you have to do with diabetes, and more so is what can you do with diabetes, and that's huge. That's game changing right there.
And the coolest opportunity we have is to make sure that other people can, you know, embrace that.
Yep, 100%.
Obviously, you could lead a horse to water, as they say, right? But you know, the key point is like we want to make sure those tools and that information is available, which I think is a cool opportunity.
Available, easily accessible, and evolving as the technology does as well.
Well, and what's cool about that is I know for a fact that I think Justin and Alex, you're both on a similar diabetes protocol, the way you manage and deliver your insulin. I'm on a different one. And so I think it's kind of cool to circle back, and it's like, you know, it's not the you know, the key to success is not finding that perfect way to deliver your insulin, how much insulin, or, you know, what tools you need to manage it. But it's really just that approach of finding the opportunities within the adversities.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, realistically, right? There's never going to be a perfect way. Things are always going to happen, or you're just going to really want to do something that you know is going to kind of mess up the blood sugars. But the cool thing is, you know, that idea that we don't want to stress over diabetes too much, because while it's important, it doesn't have to be stressful.
For my life, I don't think there's anything I can't do because of diabetes, and being able to share that mindset with everyone else that is also living with diabetes, I think is as important as anything else I do in my life, because it's allowed me to pursue kind of ridiculous and wild career paths, quote unquote. And I want everyone else that is also experiencing either any sort of doubt, any sort of like lack of confidence with diabetes management, to be able to have that confidence and have that same mindset, so that they can do whatever wild career path ideas, uh, pursuits of life they want, because that's what we've all done, and something we want to share.
I love it. That's a pretty powerful approach to your success, Justin. I'm curious, Alex, do you have like any just small little short, you know, thing that's kind of guided you over the last, how many years, Alex, have you had type 1 diabetes?
Coming up on 26 now, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
So
over the last 26
it's been a couple minutes.
Is there something that kind of guides you? Like Justin just said, he views it as there's nothing that he can't do because of the diagnosis. it definitely like, so his diagnosis did not
Yeah.
like determine his destiny, which is amazing. Alex, is there something that's kind of like been a guiding light for you in your pursuits?
I mean, it's honestly kind of just the same approach, right? But I know for me, it's a desire to experiment and learn as well.
Mm.
Like I'm never going to be like perfectly accurate, perfectly correct. There are so many variables that go into diabetes, but like, as we're probably going to talk about in the Unbound episode, I mean, it's a perfect example, right? Like trying to figure out how do I shove 120 grams of carbohydrates into my system? Well, one, without needing to puke, and two, like while also managing type 1 and ensuring that like I've got enough insulin on board and blood sugar. Like the only way I was able to do that was to try things, adjust my insulin ratios, adjust my pump settings, things like that as we're going. And that meant sometimes my blood sugars were in the 300s while I was riding. And like, is that ideal? Absolutely not. But that meant I learned what was happening, and nothing terrible, like there's no terrible outcome from that except for, okay, my blood sugars were high and I, might have been a little bit less efficient for, those couple hours. But you leave that with that knowledge of, okay, well, this surely didn't work. Let's figure out let's figure out how do we tweak it and just kind of keep going until you refine it enough. And I think just following that approach for the last 25 years has been super helpful.
I really like that, Alex. And I mean, that brings up a thought, and I know we're going to dig into the details more on the next episode where we're actually getting to the juice of this thing. But you mentioned how do I consume 120 grams of carbohydrates per hour during this 200-mile bike race? And, where does that even come from? So one of the cool things where that comes from is the current sports science and the elite Tour de France cyclists. This is becoming the protocol, right? The sports science is showing that for peak performance, that these carbohydrate ingestion protocols are giving people advantages. And so the reason I want to bring that up is because what you're doing now is you're basically like, okay, how do I work that into the diabetes system? And one of my favorite analogies of somebody living with type 1 diabetes, you guys have heard me talk about it, is, my body works the same as a non-type 1 diabetic athlete. It's just the difference is that I'm driving a manual, they're driving an automatic. Now, the cool thing is like when you learn how to harness the system, you potentially have more control, because you are driving a manual. You have control over the insulin delivery. You have control over, all sorts of little features that a non-diabetic doesn't have. Again, that's like trying to find those little pieces of advantage that comes from being a type 1 diabetic. And so I just wanted to segue into that thought process, because that's something I'm really passionate about. Of like, it's less about, oh, what do I have to eat because I have type 1 diabetes? And it's more about, oh, wait, how do I need to manipulate my system to, mirror what needs to be done based on the sports science and the recommendations for being an elite athlete? And there's a difference there. And that's a really great mindset, Alex, of, hey, I'm going to do the thing that's going to make me the fastest. And I'm going to figure out how to, manage my system around those protocols.
Yeah, I think, just to even kind of expand, right? Like, so Justin, obviously you've been in the pro cycling world now much more recently than me, given that one that you're currently there. But like when I was kind of ending my cycling career, this was like at the very beginning of this, hey, high carbs are good for you in endurance sports. So getting back into riding, that was just a massive mindset shift. I was like, for me, kind of on that experimentation side, it was like, okay, so everybody's telling me I need to do this so that I can be faster on the bike. And then it was, okay, cool. How does this first I had to understand, how does this impact diabetes? But once you kind of get the basis of that, then you can be like, you know what? Now that I'm an expert into, drinking 120 grams of sugar every hour, right? Like, then you go, here's how I can tweak it now. And I think that's another really cool component is like you experiment to get a really good understanding of kind of the baseline of a system. And then from there, you take that information and go, great. Now what happens if I try to improve it by trying X or trying Y or doing X and Y and just kind of seeing what happens? And you just keep going and keep refining until you're, rocking and rolling.
Well, and again, we have immediate feedback because of the technology.
Yeah,
Again, one of the
exactly.
things that In Stride is all about is working with brands. And so, again, I know Alex and I have been using CGM for over 18 years. And so we have a very intimate understanding of how the technology works. And we've had a really cool like experience of how, those little changes and those little tweaks actually affect our system, our bodies. And so, we've had this like advantage of having this like this window into our metabolism that, now people, non-type 1 diabetics now are getting access to these, and that's becoming a huge trend in the biohacking world. But it's kind of one of those like, oh, they're finally catching up to where, we've been getting to play for the last 18 years. And so again, to kind of spin off in like the other, both, one of the other pillars of In Stride is to take this combined 100 years of endurance sports, type 1 diabetes management, but also this like, wealth of years using the technology that's becoming so popular and so important for, overall health of our country.
Cool. I think that's great for an intro right there. I think that about wraps up who we are and what InStride is. So I think on that note, we should probably end episode one and leave a little teaser for episode two, which is going to be Alex and I's preparations for the Unbound 200, which entails like Alex was saying, a lot of grams of sugar every hour we're training, and with that, a lot of hours of training and a lot of hours of tweaking and living with type 1 diabetes and seeing what worked, seeing what didn't, and how we're feeling about the biggest gravel race in the world that's coming up very shortly.
Way too quickly.
Yeah.
I am
I need an extra 3 months, please.
Oh, no, I'm ready to go. I wish it was this weekend.
Also, sorry, I realized I completely
excited to
coughed.
learn. I'm excited
good.
to learn from you guys as you head into this race.
That'll be
Stoked.
cool. That'll be cool. I'm excited. All right. So there we go. Episode one. If you listened this far, thanks for listening. And we'll catch you in episode two.